Hello, good evening and welcome to News 360 here from the News Hub at Adisawe, Kanda. I'm Natalie Ford.
And my name is Alfred Okanse. Coming up in the bulletin tonight.
News 360 Headlines is brought to you by...
President Akufo-Addo asks the people of Dintra-Boase to go about their normal duties without fear.
Police administration proposes standardized uniform for all private security companies in the country.
Also coming up, some chiefs in the Nkonia Traditional Council in the Volta region wants the curfew imposed on the area lifted.
Also, two major labor unions asked for forensic audit before public sector worker layoffs, as announced by the senior minister.
And executives of People's National Convention, PNC, say the suspension of General Security Atiq Mohammed is valid and they will prevent him from working.
Coming up in Business Evening, Bank of Ghana to enforce new minimum capital requirement for financial institutions.
And on the foreign front, we're bringing you the very latest from the Kenya elections, where voting has ended.
Bring you all this morning, next 60 minutes here on News 360 to our first story this evening. The Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly Court has adjourned the case involving 13 members of Delta Force to September 5, 2017. The prosecutor, ACP Otridako, told the court that although investigations have been completed, there was a need to give the Attorney General time to study it before the advice.
The prosecutor, ACP Otridako, told the court they are done with investigations, but a docket has been sent to the Attorney General's office for advice. He thus prayed the court to adjourn the case to September 5, 2017 to give the Attorney General enough time to study the docket and advise them appropriately. The court, presided over by Mary Insentre, consequently granted the application. Lawyer for the accused persons, Matthew Appiah, expressed satisfaction with the progress so far.
It's now left with the advice. So maybe at the next agenda, hopefully, we know that the advice will come.
The 13 were arrested after they stormed the office of the Ashanti Regional Security Coordinator and allegedly assaulted him in the process. He was prevented from performing his duties and yanked from his office on Friday, March 24. They subsequently escaped from a Kumasi Circuit Court's custody after some of their members sparked confusion when they were arraigned and charged with conspiracy to assault a public officer and causing unlawful damage. The 13 accused persons have been charged with conspiracy to assault, assaulting a public officer, and causing unlawful damage.
President Akufo-Addo says the people of Dintra-Boase in the central region can go about their normal duties without fear. He assured them the law will only deal with those found culpable in the murder of Major Maxwell Mahama. The president was speaking during his visit to the area as part of his 6-day tour of the western and central regions.
The president condemned the gruesome murder of the late Major Mahama, cautioning against instant justice. The unfortunate incident has given you a bad name, and it should serve as a big lesson for all Ghanaians. You can go about your daily activities freely without any intimidation, as the law will only deal with perpetrators of the heinous crime. Government will still fulfill promises made during the 2016 election campaign, despite this incident. The acting president of the Dintra Traditional Council, Nana Eje Inchre II, on his part revealed is leading a crusade against instant justice in the country. Disclosed Dintra-Boase is now known as New Dintra, after the cleansing of the town through fasting and prayers by the people.
70 days ago, Arahusema etuye wagana ha. Asema esiye ekroimu.
I'm saddened by the incident that happened some few months ago. I'm leading the crusade against instant justice, and I want the law to deal with perpetrators of the crime. The president and his entourage later visited the scene of the murder. In the related development, the president also visited Wase Kropon, where he charges chiefs and people to support him in his fight against illegal small-scale mining in the country. He pledged his commitment to fulfill every promise he made during his campaign to become the president of Ghana. The chief executive officer of Cocoa Board, Joseph Boahene Edu, reiterated the president's promise to Ghanaians.
Residents of Daboya in the North Gonja district of the Northern region continue to cross the white voter without life jackets. Eva Tiboka reports residents risk their lives while life jackets lie idle.
Many continue to risk their lives on the lake. Petty trading is an economic activity for many, making crossing the lake a daily routine. Women and children are the most vulnerable during accidents. 2 people lost their lives in 2012, whilst 1 person died in 2013. The figure shot up to 4 in 2014, but dropped to 2 in 2015. 4 people again died in another tragic accident in 2016. In all, 13 deaths were recorded between 2012 and 2016 on the Volta Lake. 6 children, 4 women and 3 men lost their lives in unavoidable accidents. A former district police commander lost 2 children in 2015. This tragic accident notwithstanding, residents continued to travel on the lake without life jackets. During the news team's visit to the area, some jackets were brought. Operators, however, said the jackets are inadequate. The district chief executive of North Gonja, Adams Iliasu, denied the claims that the jackets are not enough.
After the disaster, the assembly supplied some jackets through NADMO. They were up to about 30.
The news team proposed stiffer sanctions to encourage the use of jackets.
Bylaws are in the pipeline, but change, they say, is very difficult. Like I said earlier, attitudinal. We are talking to them, we don't want to use force.
But we need to save lives.
But, talking to them for them to see the need, it will be better because we cannot be here all the time to enforce the laws. A few of them are changing. It means we are getting results.
He assured enforcement of the sanctions to ensure lives are saved.
Let's turn attention to agriculture now, as some farmers in the northern region say the fall armyworm is yet to be defeated a week after the Food and Agriculture Minister pronounced victory. The farmers want the ministry to step in quickly to help them salvage their remaining crops.
The northern region is a food basket of the country. 60% of grains, legumes and cereals are cultivated in the region. Farming is done at a subsistence level and sometimes on large scale. The farming season is here, but farmers are devastated. The fall armyworm has destroyed every crop. These able men at Bulihabila, an agrarian community, claim each of them owns averagely 40 acres of maize crop, but have lost everything to the pest. Some have lost hope and they gather here to count their losses. Others have not yet given up. They meet daily to generate and share new ideas to salvage their remaining crops from the hungry pest. 86-year-old Idrisu Mimbleam has a 35-acre maize farm. He has lost all to the fall armyworm invasion.
Grandfather is saying that he will become a beggar because the armyworm has destroyed all our properties in the farm. If not you, these people, and God alone, he has nothing to do with the family again, that he can't feed the family if the army worm is not controlled.
With a 30-member family, his worry is to feed them.
He will join them in parliament, but as of now, he has no money to do a transfer from here to Tama. But if the army worm do not control, he will do all possible to get to the parliament.
Already, Membliam's wife is struggling to feed the family, and the fear is what to survive on till the next planting and harvest season. Ibrahim Baba is the assembly member for the area and says government downplayed the pest evasion.
We live with only 2 crops in this community and the east environment. So if army worm has destroyed the maize, I don't think we have anything left for us to take care of our various household.
They want government to step in quickly to help them salvage what is left.
Well, the West African Examinations Council, WAEC, has barred some students who took part in the 2017 West African Senior School Certificate Examinations from taking part in any exams for 2 years for engaging in malpractices. The council, however, says those whose subject papers or entire results were cancelled would have the opportunity to take part in either the November-December private examinations or the main June examinations next year.
The West African Examinations Council withheld the result of 185 schools for alleged examination malpractices. Out of this, 31 schools were found to have been assisted by invigilators. Others were said to have smuggled mobile phones and photocopied answers into the examination hall. The public relations officer of the council, Agnes Tekujo, said investigations are yet to come to a conclusion. However, some sanctions have been meted out to candidates who have so far been found culpable.
We have cancelled some who have been found culpable, and others also have been let go because we didn't find anything against them. We also had some that needed the approval of the Ghana Exams Committee. Some of the candidates, because they brought in foreign material, had their subject results cancelled. Some also, because they received external assistance, had their entire results cancelled. And we also had some of the candidates who impersonated also having their entire results cancelled. And they were also barred for 2 years.
Though some have the opportunity to rewrite cancelled papers, it is likely this may delay their admission into tertiary institutions or may never get the opportunity to apply to further their education.
Now, if your subject result is cancelled, then you can retake that paper at any time that is convenient to you. Okay. If your entire result is cancelled, you can register and take all your papers at any time that is convenient to you. Okay. If your entire results are cancelled and you are also barred for 2 years, then that is when you have to wait till 2 years before you take any WAEC exam.
She revealed results for this year's basic school certificate examination will be released before the end of this month.
In other news this evening, some chiefs of the Nkonia Traditional Council in the Volta region want the curfew imposed on the area lifted. The chiefs claim the imposition is impacting negatively on livelihoods and social activities.
Continuous violence and killing of residents compelled the government to impose a dawn-to-dusk curfew on communities in the area. The curfew hours are reviewed from time to time when the security conditions improve. Residents of Nkonia and Alavani traditional area, however, say the curfew is having a toll on their activities. They argue killings are carried out during the day and wonder why impose a curfew at night. The Ministry of the Interior, however, says the curfew will be reviewed if the security situation in the area improves. Nearly 3 months on, the curfew hours remain same between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m., a situation residents say affects their livelihood and traditions.
The point is, there are some funerals whose levels are at a point we hardly, sit down doing nothing about it. It's like a chief, a stool father, an absorbing. And to our tradition, there is custom or customary rights to be performed for that person to go to the next world. And it is very difficult for us to say that because of curfew we will not do it.
The military command will, however, not agree to the request of residents.
Because we are here to enforce curfew, not to give passes. So if you want passes, then let's ensure that the curfew is lifted by being law-abiding and maintaining the peace.
The paramount queen of the area, Nana Otubia II, cautioned residents against acts that would further jeopardize the peace of the area.
When it's 8 o'clock and you are not in your house and the police arrest you, should you throw stone at the police vehicle? Or when the military try to tell you that go back to your house because it's curfew, then you start throwing stones and this thing. When you obey the law, you don't have any problem with the security.
She asked all to obey the curfew hours until a review is done by the Ministry of the Interior.
Still live here on News360. Remember, streaming all across the world on 3news.com as well as TV3 Ghana on Facebook. Let's take a look at what's still ahead tonight. The executives of the People's National Convention, PNC, say the suspension of General Secretary Atiq Mohammed is valid and they will prevent him from working.
Also, the central bank to enforce new minimum capital requirement for financial institutions.
And on the international front, we'll bring you the latest from Kenya, where voting has ended and counting has begun.
A very good evening to you and thanks for staying with us on News 360. Let's do business now. My name is Nanekia Mensah Brampa. We begin from the central bank, where the bank says it will ensure strict enforcement of the new minimum capital requirements for banking institutions. Now, according to Dr. Ernest Addison, the lack of a procedure to ensure banks adhere to the requirement is responsible for flouting of the regulation.
Banking institutions currently have 120 million cedis as minimum capital requirement. This the central bank is proposing to adjust upwards, though some banks might be compelled to merge in order to meet the new requirement. The central bank said this is to sanitize the banking and financial sectors and make banks viable. Data available from the central bank indicate that majority of the banks in Ghana are still capitalized at the old 2008 figure of 60 million as compared to the new requirement of 120 million cedis, a situation which has been attributed to the lack of procedure and monitoring on the part of the central bank. The governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, says his outfit will ensure that the necessary procedures are employed to ensure that banks comply with the new directive.
Let me assure you that whatever decision that we make on the new level of capitalization, it will be accompanied by procedures for enforcement. We are not just going to announce a minimum capital requirement which will not be enforced. This has been the practice.
He added that the Bank of Ghana is subscribing to other international signatories to ensure that banking standards in the country remain competitive. The governor was speaking at the second day of the Ghana Economic Forum. The session, which was dubbed Building Stronger Banks for a Stronger Economy, brought together stakeholders and industry players to discuss challenges in the banking sector and possible ways of solving them.
ISO is still staying with the central bank, and it has cautioned the public against depositing money with Men's Gold Company Limited, an investment company, because it has not been licensed to do so. Now, answering questions at the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, Second Deputy Governor Dr. Johnson Isiama warned clients they do so at their own risk.
The Bank of Ghana took its stand at the second sitting of the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament on Tuesday. The Member of Parliament for Gomoa West, Alexander Kojokum Aban, quizzed the Deputy Governor if they have taken notice of the activities of Men's Gold Company Limited. The second Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Isiama, told the committee, though the company has been given approval by the Minerals Commission to trade in gold, the central bank has not licensed Men's Gold to accept cash deposits.
There has to be evidence that they are accepting deposits, thereby flouting our regulations. We will have to sit down with the respective agencies, and I've instructed that we need to work together to pin them down. Because if they are licensed to purchase gold, that doesn't have anything to do with us.
He cautioned the public not to make deposits to Men's Gold.
These people are not to accept deposits. If they ask you to give them money, don't give it to them.
The MP for Gomoa West, Alexander Kojokumaban, insisted inviting people to purchase gold bars and managing it for them constituted banking. He however called on the Bank of Ghana and the Securities and Exchange Commission to intervene in order to avert a scandal like that of DKM.
They have already promised that at the end of the month, you are going to get so much in return. And in doing that, they do not even tell us whether what they have actually given out is gold, because after all, you are not taking it home. They have not also said what they are even going to do having regard to the price fluctuations on the world market of gold.
All right, so that's one developing story. We'll be getting you more updates into in our subsequent bulletins. But away from banking, and the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union has called on government not to import raw materials to feed the industries to be created or risk the collapse of the factories. General Secretary Solomon Kote is of the view the use of local raw materials will help sustain production.
President Akufo-Addo has again insisted on creating more industries to support economic growth. These industries are to recruit the teeming unemployed youth and to raise their living standards. Although the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union has supported the creation of the industries, it has asked government to indicate how raw materials would be acquired. General Secretary Solomon Kote said if government should import the raw materials, the industries will collapse.
The cocoa factories in this country, okay, they need the cocoa on daily basis. Even though they can receive them weekly, bi-weekly or monthly, they must have them in store. Because any shortage of the beans, it means they are shutting down their machines. We saw how it affected WAMCO. The WAMCO abruptly had to shut down because no supply of beans. So the concept of industrialization is great.
Kote again charged government to make available enough power to support the growth of the industries.
Fundamentally, citing an industry, okay, we know you must have constant and reliable power. You must also have constant and reliable water. You must also have good roads. Don't let us put the cart before the horse. Let's organize in such a way that when these things take off, they will leave us with the blessing they say.
He requested that the already defunct factories and industries should be revived.
All right, so we'll stay a while longer on labor issues because two major labor unions are asking for a forensic audit into the number of staff and level of efficiency before any layoffs are done by government. Now, reacting to the senior minister's disclosure of layoffs, the Health Services Workers Union and the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union say they will reject any layoffs if the auditing is not done.
Sector Joint Negotiation Committee, comprising government and labor in 2016 and 2017, signed an MOU with government where workers will not be laid off. In that agreement, workers only accepted a 12.5% increment instead of the 30% it earlier tabled at the negotiations. Almost a year, Senior Minister Osafo Mafo, according to media reports, said government will lay off 1,500 workers in the public service contrary to the agreement. He was of the view the public sector cannot continue to recruit more hands, but government will rather create the enabling environment to allow the private sector to create jobs. The General Secretary of the Health Services Workers Union, Reynolds Ofosu-Tenkran, is however of the view any layoffs will not be supported by Labour.
In the past, there was a redundancy exercise, and it never helped the workers. So we will not contain that. And once the previous government contained all the workers in the public service, it behooves on the current government to also accept them and work with them.
He again warned government not to rely on IMF conditionalities to lay off workers.
There was a redundancy package which was paid to them, but many regretted for collecting that package.
The Industrial and Commercial Workers Union ICU rather charged government to conduct a special forensic audit into the work output and number of staff in the service.
We have over-employed in the past. Look, we are having a situation where the over-recruitment has gone to a point people sit in the libraries of the organization, they sit at the waiting room for visitors. They are supposed to be staff. They don't have tables and chairs to sit on. Some are running the hot desking. As soon as you get up, I sit on the seat, you come, you also have to stand like prisoners in the cells. This is what is happening in most of the public institutions.
The General Secretary Solomon Kote again proposed to government to offer contracts to those with institutional memory if the layoffs begin.
Until our public sector system works like how we are saying in the private sector system to maximize efficiency of every employee, we will continue to making losses that are avoidable and should not come on the table of government at all.
Right, and that will do for the business segments tonight. But remember, you can download the 3 News app on Google Play Store for more news updates. My name is Nanikia Mensah-Brampa, and when we return from this break, more on the Kenyan election results. Stay tuned. It's News 360. Good evening.
So we still remain your election command center with our focus on what's happening in Kenya. Counting has begun in the over 41,000 polling stations across the country. I'll take you to Kenya to give you an update of the situation there.
Voting started as early as 6 a.m. with some spending 6 hours in the queue. Although 8 candidates are contesting for the presidency, political analysts say it's a 2-horse race between incumbent Uhuru Kenyatta and opposition leader Raila Odinga. This is the second time the two are meeting head-to-head after a similar encounter in 2013. This is the 4th time Raila Odinga is contesting and could possibly be his last if he fails to win. On the eve of the 2017 elections, the veteran politician raised a number of concerns, including the Electoral Commission's failure to distribute the voters' register to the various political parties.
We don't understand how a place like Siaya, Homa Bay, Migori and so on could be out of network. We think that this is basically something that is deliberate, is meant to do something fishy during the transmission of the results.
The president, in his last speech before the elections, also called for calm and urged all candidates to accept the election outcome.
Your neighbor is your brother. Your neighbor is your sister. How you have voted should not in any way reflect or change the manner in which you have related to your neighbor.
Over 19 million Kenyans participated in the elections that sought to elect legislators, senators, governors and the president. By law, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission have 7 days for the results to be released. Results from the more than 40,000 polling stations would be collated at the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission in Nairobi.
All right, so electoral observer missions are already speaking about the voter process and then the turnout in the elections there where it continues ongoing. Former Ghanaian President John Dramani Mahama, leader of the team of Commonwealth monitors, commended Kenyans for a strong early turnout.
Impressed by the turnout. Yeah, there are long queues here. It shows the enthusiasm that people have to exercise their democratic right. There's been no incident so far. Voting seems to be going smoothly, and I think it's a good sign for Kenyan democracy.
I would certainly be interested in knowing who's in the lead in the elections in Kenya, but it's clear that it's obviously too early to tell, as we know that there are over 41,000 polling stations. But unconfirmed results by Reuters is what's on the screen behind me here. Uhuru Kenyatta is in the lead with 57.5%, representing 904,477 and 656,293. That's Raila Odinga, which is 41.8%. And then the rest of the candidates, as we know, there are 8 persons contesting: Dida, Kaluyu, and Jirongo, with much less figures here. Now, I'm just going to run you through some of the key issues that occurred during the elections in Kenya. There were some minor technical problems that were reported. If you're following, you'll see on social media minor technical problems that were said to have affected the time of the election results being made known. But the Commission in Kenya has gone on to say that it wouldn't affect it too much. 8 candidates are vying to be president, as you saw in the slide earlier there, but to the 2 leading candidates who are neck to neck is Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. 6 elections from president down to county representatives. There are also more than 14,000 candidates running across the 6 elections. And over 45% of registered voters are under 35. That's a large youth population. Also, some 180,000 security officers are on duty nationwide, and it's been said to have been rather peaceful there in Kenya. Alfred, we're taking this discussion a little further.
Absolutely, and there's a good reason why Ghanaians are very much interested in what's happening in Kenya, because we share a lot in common politically and economically. Some people have described us as twins separated as birth. I've been joined via Skype from Nairobi by Joseph Warungo. He's a general manager at Major General News, and he is the official representative of TV3 in Kenya, and he joins us via Skype. So, good evening to you. Thank you for joining us this evening. Great. Now, could you just give us a general overview of exactly how the voting process transpired before the polls closed?
Now, today's voting went pretty smoothly from morning till evening all across the country. It's interesting that people started arriving at polling stations as early as 3 a.m., which is 3 hours before the polling stations opened. And on the whole, it was quite peaceful. People just came in, cast their ballots, and decided to go home. There were incidences here and there, but on the whole, everyone agrees that it was a pretty much smooth election. I mean, I went to vote myself, and it took all of just under 5 minutes for the whole process from signing in to casting all those 6 ballots in their boxes and getting out. So it was pretty smooth. But turnout was huge in a lot of places, despite rains in some parts of the country. So it was generally a smooth exercise.
Fantastic. Now, you mentioned the rains in some parts of the country. I am aware that it disrupted the voting process there, and Lamu County as well, where there's a curfew, and so it delayed the voting process. Has the voting ended in the areas where the rains affected and the curfew areas as we speak?
Now, the Electoral Commission said that whatever areas were late in opening their polling stations would extend that time by whatever amount of time was lost. And this was particularly in the coastal area of Kenya. Lamu, as you mentioned, parts of Mombasa, again, at the coast. And also in the north of the country, there is a place where one of the presidential candidates couldn't vote for quite a few hours because the bridge to, the polling station he was going to had been washed away by rain. So he was caught up in one side of, of the river and waiting to cross. So some people have voted till very late in the night to compensate for the amount of time that was lost. But as we understand now, it's pretty much closed now. Though the Electoral Commission said anyone who was in the line before the 5 p.m., which is the official time for closing the polling stations, would still be allowed to vote.
That's good news. There was this incident of a 72-year-old man who died after casting his ballot. Now, has there been an establishment of exactly what led to his death after the collapse?
It's not known what this man who died in the western part of the country, what caused his death. I mean, from eyewitnesses and reports which have come in, he was in very good spirits before he went to the polling stations. According to his family, he cast his vote, and then he seemed to suffer some kind of chest pains of sorts, although the doctors have not yet said what exactly his problem was. But that also tells you the kind of eagerness that there was amongst people. There was also reports of a woman who delivered a baby at a polling station. We've not immediately verified that, but such was the drive by people. We saw people, even men, carrying babies on their back on the queues, wanting to vote. I myself gave a lift to a very, very, an 80-year-old woman who was determined to go and cast her ballot. So there was this great desire for people to just go and, exercise their right in this election.
Enthusiasm was really, really high when we were monitoring right here in Ghana. But how did the whole biometric verification machines and the transmission system, how did it work over the period, of the election?
This was much better than in the last election in 2013, especially the voter identification. For example, I just placed my left finger on the machine, and it immediately brought up the details. But I was told I was one of the lucky few. For a lot of people, they had to try so many times, and for some, the machines actually failed. They had to go back to a manual register to fish out the voters' details. Where we're having a huge problem, and the opposition has pointed this out, is in the relaying of the results from the polling stations to the tallying center here in Nairobi. The opposition had said, was very concerned that almost a quarter of the polling stations do not have 3G or 4G mobile network coverage, which means that those results would have to be delivered through scanned copies, from the returning officer on the ground to the tallying center. This is causing concern because the opposition was also feeling that a lot of the stations which are affected by this lack of coverage are actually in the opposition strongholds. So we're waiting to see how that will go. The Electoral Commission defended itself by saying, look, even if the mobile telephony fails, the network fails, we've still got the old school way of scanning these signed results by the returning officer on the ground, scanning them and sending over to Nairobi. And they said actually that will be their main method of verifying that these results are the final results.
Thank you very much, I'm grateful. We're going to be coming to you a lot more as we go on with the counting process. We're getting provisional results from Joseph Warungo is a general manager in charge of news here at Media General. He's an official representative of Media General in Kenya here on TV3.
Hi, good evening, and it's time to bring you all the latest in the world of sports with me, Thierry Nyan. Let's get started then, and we kick off, against, Real Madrid and the Manchester United game, which currently is ongoing. It's half-time in that particular game in Macedonia, and Manchester United are trailing to Real Madrid. Goal scored by Casemiro, and Jose Mourinho and his men would have to do and dig deeper in the second half to come back strongly in this particular one, just so they will be able to make it straight into winning this particular trophy. Anyway, let's go straight to the world of athletics. And Ghana's Jonathan Ponsa has finished fourth in the 200-meter race heats in the 2017 World Athletics Championships and has failed to qualify to the semi-final of the